Okay, thank you. And Tom is closing the door. Yes, it's a sign that we should start. So, thank you for staying with us. So by the way, my name is Armand, Angeli, and I represent the CFO, the excellent CFO community. I'm the president for the French CFO Association, but we also have created a community of CFO, automation people, shared services leaders, a community which we have called a CFO Automation Experience, and you're all welcome to join this community. It's a platform, and we organize roundtables almost every second week. So when we are not here in Warsaw for Tom, we organize roundtables with Tom once a year, and roundtables every second week. So you're welcome to join. It doesn't cost anything. It's exchange between peers on the CFO Automation Experience. So today, after discussing with Tom, we realized that automation, RPA, intelligent automation, AI, artificial intelligence, is for some of us is still a mystery. We still have some issues, challenges, but there are still some big rewards with automation. And so and because automation really started in shared services, GBS, where we have lots of people, we are supposed to have stable processes, typically the place where we can automate. So we decided to have a session on automation, and which we have titled Risk and Rewards of Automation, or Challenges, and how we cope with the challenges of automation. And so to have this discussion for the next 45 minutes, we have, of course, all of you, because we would like to share your learnings with the audience. And we also brought the best in class for automation. The first best being the number one on RPA and automation, UiPath. By the way, it's partner, but it's easy to bring them because they are the number one, 38 billion valuation last year. So UiPath, we are supposed to have Stephen Faulkner from UiPath joining us. And so, is he with us?
Maybe 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay. So, he will introduce himself when he joins. So, UiPath, and the other best people, to you, of course, are Michal. He will introduce himself from Orange. And why Michal? Because he received an award for the best financial center. And I think also where you were voted the best center manager, right? So I heard some years ago, but we will be. And the other best, but not yet best, it's Nikola from Holcim, and they have a package, and they have been nominated, they have been shortlisted to be the best automation project of the year, together with others. So she might be the best. They might be the best tonight. By the way, you can still vote. You still have a few hours to vote for them or otherwise. So, Michal and Nikola will introduce themselves, and Steve also will join, and we will share together our learnings. Again, challenges, risk, and rewards of automation. So, enough about me. So, what about you, Nikola, first? Can you tell us who you are, which company, where you are with automation, and then Orange. So, Nikola.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nikola Kisidayova. I'm in charge of process automation, process improvement, intelligent automation in Holcim European Business Services. European Business Services is a company that employs 300 people located in Košice, Slovakia. Our journey with robotic process automation mainly started in 2018 when we established a small team, really a team of 4 people who started the journey, and we started to learn as an organization how to be efficient in the process selection, what is the right way, how to manage the automation, and many learnings all over the journey. During our journey, we face different challenges. For sure, we face different challenges today than we faced the challenges when we started, and potentially with different challenges in comparison with the companies that have thousands of the robots. As of today, we have approximately 100 robots in place, fully functional for the business service center functions, in P2P, record to report, H2R, so really in various functions of the business service center. But also we provide services, RPA services to our business partners in the country. So this is one of the areas where we are focusing on as a business service center to provide more professional value-added services also for our business partners.
Thank you, Nikola. Michal, where are you? Who is Orange?
Okay, Michal Wierzbowski. I am responsible for the Orange shared service in Poland, here in Lublin, actually. Let's say I used to work in other companies in BPO, and so I was like on both sides. Now the story about Orange is a little bit different than what we just heard. Actually, we started with the finance activities, which were transferred from the let's say from all over the country into one shared service, and then throughout the years, it was in 2006, so we're quite mature right now, and throughout these years, we used all sorts of automation, and finally, actually, we decreased the number of people engaged in the processes by 85%. Yeah, so that was the outcome. And we use all sorts of automation, and okay, of course, the robots and so on, but we keep on thinking that, the machine-to-machine approach is the most efficient, but if you cannot do this, then you use other tools, yeah? So, and okay, we'll discuss this.
Yeah, we'll discuss that in details. Okay. So, yes, by the way, I was going to ask who is familiar with RPA and automation, if you ask the contrary, who is not familiar with RPA and automation. Okay, so I'm glad I asked the second question. Okay, so let's start with why maybe RPA automation has not picked up the way before, depending upon the analysts we listen to, more than 50% of the automation RPA project either fail or have stalled or have not reached their objectives. So, and I'm not sure what is your case, but so why in your case, what have you encountered as challenges when you looked into automating? And so actually the first time, maybe you mentioned it, was there are lots of products to automate, and maybe the first one would be, let's not go too fast into RPA because there are other ways of automating. So maybe...
I would say that you need to be open to use different tools, yeah? And my case was that, when we first started with the RPA, we actually we didn't have the right business case, and we knew it from the beginning that we have to overpay, let's say, the entry to start with. Yeah? So you kind of have to, at the beginning, you have to be generous in the way that if you don't do that, it will be difficult to pass the border. And I've seen it in other areas of even our company that when they were trying to make business case of every first step, they were blocking themselves. Yeah. So I think this is one thing. So start, be generous, and but afterwards you have to look into the details. Yeah. And this concerns the entering into the technology that you want to use on a larger scale later on. So that's my advice, and that's how it happened, in my case, and it worked out. But then when you continue, then you, for each business case, you put it up, and then you check it, and you follow it. Yeah? So that's afterwards you need to be ready for the failures also. And if so, just stop it. Just to tell you that out of we have a little bit less actually, like 70 robots working on, but the number of them which were closed because we found out that we don't need them anymore. We have other, let's say, automation capacities to put in, so the robots are not good anymore, but then they are good elsewhere. So be open and cross the first border, and then just continue.
Okay, business case, yes. And yourself?
I completely agree with you. In fact, we have to know that RPA is one of the enablers of the process improvement, so is not the single one. There are more ways how to improve the processes. We had cases in the past when people came and asked for automation some of the reports, but we asked them, okay, do we need still these reports because we do this activity for 3 years? Are the recipients of these reports still do they need it? So we need to always challenge the process before we go for the automation to make sure that this is the right way that what we do. And on the other hand, assess the other options. Probably there is other way how to get to the result. So first of all is to be aware what is the expectation, what we want to achieve, the objective that we want to achieve. And on the top of that, those objectives needs to be aligned with all the respective parties. So it's also a failure, I would say, to say that you put in the organization a certain group of people and you expect them to deliver number of FTE savings, but you don't engage the business and you don't engage the IT. So the objectives of this program needs to be very clear and very well understood on all layers in the organization.
Okay, thank you. I'm still looking at Steve. Go, Steve. That's fine. You will join later. Other issues you've met? And how about you? I have a long list, so I can add more. And you have, in this room we have lots of people from IT. And why did we really start with RPA? Oh, Steve is with us. Steve, good morning. We can't hear you, but this is you on mute, or why is he muted? Steve, say something. Well, he's dead. Okay, yeah, and yeah, shout at us when you can, Steve. Yeah, I was mentioning that in the room we not only have GBS people, but we have finance people and we have IT people, and we have Steve talking now.
Can you
yes,
hear me?
yes, we can. So Steve, welcome. So Steve, who are you and what are you doing with UiPath?
So, firstly, I would just like to say what a pleasure it is to be with everyone today. My role at UiPath is very much to lead the global CFO engagement and to help people understand the value of automation, but I think Armand may have already mentioned, like every IT transformation, there are risks associated with realizing that value. So what we try to do is to help educate people in terms of the best way to realize and unlock that value. So that's my principal role.
Yeah, thank you. You see, Steve is not in sales. He goes around the world and talks to CFOs, people like me, to understand what are their issues. So Steve, you have an easy life, right? Good.
Very much so. I always enjoy talking to the finance fraternity. I'm very proud of being a part of the finance organization for over 25 years.
Yeah.
And I think anyone that's worked in finance knows the hours that the professionals put in place, and that's why I joined UiPath. I have a real passion to try and help unlock value and to enable those professionals within the finance organisation get a work-lifestyle balance. I think we can achieve the same outcomes, but we don't necessarily have to work the same 18-hour days, especially around month-end cycles and critical forecasting programs.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Steve. I don't know if you heard us. We started discussing about the issues met by us when starting with RPA and automation. So we listed already a few, not having a business case, governance, and I was going to mention that we tend, us finance people started with RPA, hoping that we would not have to talk to IT, because when you talk to IT, asking them to implement a new development, to have our machines talk to each other, IT tells you, yeah, we can do it. It will take you a few months, a few years, it will be a few millions. So we got fed up, so we did our own things with robots. And then we realized, and Steve just said it, we realized that actually implementing RPA is like implementing any other software. It has an impact on IT, on infrastructure, on security, and then IT came after us, and some of the projects had to maybe stall, if not stop. So IT has been an issue, but we will discuss how we can go around the IT issue. So, Steve, I have a long list of challenges and, of course, solutions. So, when you talk to the CFOs, tell us what they tell you in terms of issues they have had with implementing, to start with RPA, or why the project not prospering the way they were hoping.
So, I think the first thing that the challenge they always put to me is that 70% of IT transformational projects fail. So why should I believe that if I leverage automation, there is going to be a different outcome? And I think there are a couple of answers to that question. The first is that the time to value proposition from an RPA solution is much faster. And I think if you listen to Forrester, they say you need 12 to 18 months planning for an ERP deployment. And clearly, from an automation point of view, that timeline isn't necessary. So, the conversation is really around how you can leverage automation in conjunction with your other IT infrastructure projects and to realize the value. So, that's where we start. And then it's really about that vision about how can you fulfill the true potential of automation as part of that broader IT architectural deployment. And then we go into the usual conversation, as you mentioned, Armand, around how do we work with IT, how do we get the right skills to make sure that our people are embedded in that project deployment. And there's some really good answers around that. So I'll just leave it at that for the moment.
Yep. Okay. What about in the audience? What are the issues you have faced when you started your journey in automation and RPA? So we mentioned a few. What about data? Data not being structured. As we all know, 80% of the data that we are using is not structured. So if we don't have a tool to structure data, the robots are useless, right? So the data is one. We mentioned process. The process are not clean. And there are ways around it. We mentioned ROI. What about talents? RPA is new, automation is new for some of us, and we discussed it this morning already. There's a big shortage in talents, and even more in automation talent. Also, RPA means robotic process automation, but we have come to realize that actually we are not automating processes end-to-end, but we're automating tasks. So we were hoping to automate a full process from end-to-end, P2P, O2C, R2R, and then we realized actually we can only automate some tasks. And so that's also something that was a surprise to us. And if we look at now the results, 80% of the robots that we have implemented are attended, meaning like someone needs to push on a button to make it run and come back after a few minutes after the task is over. So while we were hoping to have the robots working in the background, autonomous, and then you go for coffee and you come back a few hours later. So that was also a surprise. So all of that helped us think twice about the automation, about RPA, and to look into new solutions.
If I may,
please.
Just on this one, robots needs to have the attendants, so either you need to have a kind of a manager of the robot, so you have to check out on what's going on. From our experience, we, for example, use robots to take data from the for the electricity usage and so on. And it turns out that actually there is lots of changes on the other side. That when it happens, that robots are just stopping. So we had this, that everything was set up, the robots were working, and then after some time, someone just noticed that it's actually not happening because something was changed on the side of the supplier, and the robot was just stopped. So you need to check it out, and very often you're not even able to predict that there are changes happening. So you have to be ready for changing, improving whatever is needed. There are some capacities to upgrade the robots in a way that they are more easier to work with the changes coming from the external world. But still, it needs to be attended. So this is on that side. There is one. I would just like to say on the process mining, because when you say that you improve just the process as it is, then what you can use, and actually we are doing a project with UiPath by accident, that we are doing the process mining of part of our activities, and through this you can find in a more end-to-end approach what needs actually to be fixed, or even what needs to be changed in a way that you actually, I always compare it to like when you look from the top on a river, and when we have some river like delta, and you have lots of these flows, and from very high you don't see it, but when you go lower you see it. So the point is to make it flow in a one direction and in one flow, So this is the change that needs to be done, but to make it happen, first you have to know. And the data is very important, because when you try to get the right data, you need lots of fixing, because the tool itself, it's not sometimes able to understand the different flows. But it's a question of knowledge, it's a question of getting into it, and then you can understand the flows and actually work on those that need to change, and not those that you have to leave alone because you know that they need to exist. So it's a quite complex, and it needs needs those who are able to do that. So the talents.
Yeah, thank you, Michel. Actually, you touched upon two cases: process mining, data mining, which are solutions which are now available. And now we are not talking only about RPA robots, but we are talking about platform, automation platform. We are talking about intelligent automation, where we add to RPA, the simple robots, we add tools, which we call AI tools, but based on machine learning and big data, which help make these RPA robots become more intelligent. So we're talking about process mining, data mining, chatbot, computer vision, natural language processing, all these things that help understand smooth the process, so that we can use all the data, all the processes, and automate it if needed. So In addition to process data, anything else you'd like to add on the list I have started to make?
Well, in fact, in our organization, what is the key learning in terms of management of the robot is to engage the business. It is also one of the key learning from the past that we cannot just create a robot and drop the work. It is also about the management, monitoring, and performance. So the adaptation of the new solution is for the operation team. It's not something that we do robotics just to do robotics. It's about to have the value in our organization and to monitor if we are reaching the value that was supposed to be delivered. Also through the management of the robot, we faced a lot of challenges in terms of outages coming from the infrastructure topics, updates of the system and so on. So after a certain level of the automation that you reach, it also becomes a bit challenging to maintain, because it's different when you have, if there is a difference if you have 5 robots in place and you have a small team that manage the exceptions. And it's different when you have hundreds of automations and then suddenly all of them fail because they use the same application in all of them. So you have to have a plan to fix it. This comes to the discussion about the service support and also how the operation team or expert team manage their automation, and on the other hand, robotics team, IT team, how they provide this service support for the operations.
Yeah, thank you. And we are back into the IT versus business or finance working together well. And so what has been the solution for you? Did you implement, as we've seen some companies, center of expertise, where you have a mix of finance, business people, and IT working together well, so that for the benefits, so there's no fight, no shadow IT?
Yeah, we have implemented a community in our organization. We call them champions. So first of all, their role is to evangelize about robotics, to get new ideas, to get new processes, not only for the robotics, but also for other improvements. Then secondly, monitor the performance of the existing automation. So also we implemented a dashboard where we can see, okay, these robots work. If they don't work, what is the reason? If there is a drop in the performance, what is the reason? So this is really to sustain the value that we achieved. And secondly, this came with the certain level of maturity when we had to implement also a service support. So in terms of availability of the service, it's really important to focus on the processes with higher criticality. It's also a difference when you have an automation or the process that has a daily frequency and you have to fix it within a few hours, or you have a process that should be completed till certain deadline and you still have time to fix it. So everything depends on the scope or on the specificity of the process that you are including in the automation journey.
Okay, thank you. So Michal, how do you make your IT talk work well with finance?
Yeah, you need to be friends. Yeah, so that's important. But do your work. So we have, and then what happened to be very efficient, we built 3 layers. So one layer is what we call process engineers, so those who know the process and know the IT part, which are working directly within the teams. Yeah, and they support. So within each team, I have at least 1 or 2 process engineers who are working on building the robots or building other automation. And that's one layer. Then the second layer is still within the shared service team. There's a separate team, which is more or less IT. You may call it shadow IT, but we don't call it shadow IT. We call it like a process engineers within the shared service. And we have a, let's say, agreement with our IT that they understand that we're a little bit different. We need to be more on site and react faster than just having a project within IT and so on. So this is the second layer, and they are building like a bigger applications, bigger automations which is needed. And then the third layer is it's a corporate IT where we cooperate with. If there are some, when you change the ERP or you do really big projects, then you cooperate with IT. But then always the IT supports everything which is linked with infrastructure. Yeah, so that's the support from the IT. So you need to be friends, you need to cooperate, but then keep kind of away IT from your day-to-day activities, because they simply they don't know it, and they are happy if they don't need to know it. Yeah, so you can actually make it way it's working this way, and everybody is happy at the end. So we had changes on the IT CIO position, and they were coming over to see, okay, guys, you are doing really something different, so let's keep it this way, and work.
Steve, what about COEs? Is it what you see when you talk to your peers?
Yeah, I think there have been some very good examples there that the panel have shared. UiPath promotes what we call an automation operating model. Now that depends on the scale of the investment, but I think it builds on some of the points the panelists have just shared. That is that it's broader than the COE, and it typically would include internal audit, it would include corporate IT, and importantly that business leadership, right? Making sure that there's tight alignment between the business goals and also the focus of that automation committee is especially important. So actually our foundation is very much aligned, and I think the panelists have shared some very good examples of practically implementing that. So very much aligned with our theory.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, let's go back to money. We are finance people, and I think you said you have to invest at the beginning, and I said also that the ROI is not always there. And actually, what we do see among our community is that if you look for employee reduction by putting robots or automation, it doesn't work. If we look at what we are doing, what our people in finance are doing, you can really robotize maybe 15-20% of the day-to-day work. So this is in average, right? We are facing it's more. So, and when you robotize 15% of a task of a person, the person can have more coffee, more tea, do something more interesting, but the job is still there, right? So, and what we see is the way to really reduce the cost is by reviewing the processes from the very beginning, and then you get productivity, you get cost reduction, but only because you have reassessed the process and sometimes suppressed a part of the process, and then you can gain in average 20-30%. So this is what we see. So given what I just said, so how do you sell RPA automation to your boss, to the CFO? What do you have any? Did you meet these issues? And can you give some ideas on how you can sell better the automation projects when you don't have ROI right away? Any recommendations?
Well, of course, every company is looking for a return on the investment. This must be there, of course. We cannot look to the ROI maybe from the perspective of the process, but from the program itself. Because there are some automations, of course, they will give you number of FTE saving, but then there are automation that you do for different reasons. For example, compliance for reduction of the errors, or you want to increase service availability for your customers. Some projects are done also for a good reputation of the company, like we are doing services for our business partners in terms of RPA. So when it comes to the return of the investment, I think it's a general
yeah,
topic.
thank you. No, thank you. And Michel, you can comment also.
Yeah, there's one addition. I fully agree. And one point additional is the cost avoidance. Yeah? You have lots of projects going on in the company, the changes in the processes, and then there are new processes or whatever. And then you have to be very vigilant, and you have to react on spot to avoid that there are costs piling up, because you have to do it manually. So you invent the way, is it the RPA, is it some other automation? But you have to invent it to avoid the potential cost which will start if you don't do that upfront.
Yeah. Thank you. So cost avoidance, compliance, and more generally, I mean, look at qualitative ROI instead of only quantitative. And one not to miss is the employee satisfaction. Believe it or not, and hopefully it's also your experience, when we implement automation, RPA, all these AI tools, our people are more satisfied. So just for that, having people more satisfied, having a better job, it makes a big difference, and it's a way also to sell these projects. Hopefully, it's if you don't agree, please let us know. But typically, that's what we see. Automation means quality of life for our employees. Steve, if you want to add, don't hesitate.
Yeah, thanks, Armand. I would like to just build on
2 minutes? Okay. So, Steve.
I would just like to build on the employee experience. Actually, that is one of the principal drivers that we hear from CFOs, right? So I agree with your point around productivity. So there are two conversations that we have. One is really around that employee experience and getting a work-lifestyle balance. I think the second is trying to build the capability, right? So we talked about skills, we talked about talent. What you can do, and what we see a lot from our customers, is to build the capacity through some of these productivity gains in building. I think we talked about process engineering, we talked about development, and centers of excellence. So you can't really build these automation operating models and COEs as an incremental investment. They have to be self-funded. So that's where, beyond, I think, the specific employee experience, there's a lot of value, because that creates a sustainable path towards realizing value at scale.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Yeah, just to recap, RPA is great, but it's much better if you add all these AI tools, the ones that I mentioned, process mining, data mining, using big data, machine learning, so you make your robots more cognitive. So talents, COE, talking to having the backing from top management, because this project alone is a journey, so you have to have the right governance with the big boss also pushing. So, and you need to have also a vision, not look for immediate ROI, look for qualitative ROI. And another one I would like to mention is I know there are some auditors in the room, so there's a big debate going on right now. Is it a debate? It's a big one, but a debate. So, do we trust too much automation? And the debate comes from the fact that if you go to your external auditors, or even your internal auditors, they will tell you, wow, you are putting in place robots, we don't know these algorithms, so it will take us more time to review them. And so, and when you talk to your auditors, they will say, yeah, it's more complex, or the fees need to be increased. But then you can say, wait, if we automate, then you have less to review. So is it a debate going on, and on the fees, but also on whether we trust too much automation. And I know in the room there are companies who won't say the contrary, but with automation, when we trust too much automation, sometimes we end up with more duplicate payments or even the suspicious tasks that you let go because it's, oh, it's automated, so it must be correct. So that's something to keep in mind, not to trust. First of all, make sure that you really need what you are implementing, because there are lots of ways to automate, and then look at the right tool that fit for what you want to do, and don't trust, just keep reviewing what you are doing, reassessing, and have the right team to when you automate. So that would be my final comments. At least one question from the room before we close.
One question.
One question. So we try to cover all the possible issues and yes, probably yes. Thank you. An easy one, right? Because we have only a few seconds.
My question would be about use case selection. So usually it's championship, or what you mentioned, specific teams, etc. My question is, do you have practice in introducing efficiency selection or use case selection training for all new joiners? Because this is frontline, fresh asking questions, why do you do that way? So is there such practice and, to have such trainings for all team members, all staff, all new joiners?
Do you have comments?
Well, the answer is no. There's no training for everybody that comes in. It's more like training for the activity to be done. But then, of course, for those who are in the teams of automation and doing this job, that's full training. That's absolutely clear. But not for the as a standard, for example, accountant or something that you join in and you. But this is a good point. This is a good point. Do we need at this stage to at least give some information about the tools that are available that can be used? Because the question is why let's say are present at that stage, at the very beginning. But on the other hand, I do, for example, ask that ask questions. Say if you think something is for you that should not be this way or can be done differently. Just be fresh. Just ask those questions. But it's a good point.
Last comment.
We do a communication for all our employees about the program, what are the objectives, so this is done regularly. But in fact, more about the context, use case prioritization, this stays with the operational teams, with the champion and with the managers of the process. So the experience and the use case prioritization comes from the business processes.
Okay, Armand.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Michel. Thank you, Nikola. And if you have any questions, we are here. Don't hesitate. Thank you.
Thank you. So, quick